The Dallas Stars had their win streak snapped by the Anaheim Ducks to begin their West Coast road trip, and on top of that, they may have suffered another loss on defense.
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. It was tough sledding for the Dallas Stars last night in Orange County as they fall to the Anaheim Ducks by a final score of 2-1, ending their 5-game win streak. And they suffered another loss on defense. This time, it's Ilya Lyubushkin. How many more of these injuries to the back end can the Dallas Stars take? We'll break it all down on today's episode of Locked On Stars that is brought to you by Gametime. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I do want to end today's episode with something fun. A Luka trade comparison to the Dallas Stars. How Luka and Mike Modano feel very, very similar. And imagine if the Stars went ahead and traded Mike Modano as he was about to enter the prime of his career. I want to have some fun at the end before we get into some of the negatives of last night's game. Another late one in Anaheim, a couple of more late ones coming your way as we get into the weekend. So be prepared to have the caffeine and coffee ready. I was ready to go to bed as I was trying to take in the action last night, but Dallas just looked a bit sluggish, if that's the word. Sluggish is probably the more apropos term I was looking for there. It was a bit wonky at times. Anaheim was a better team, plain and simple. The Ducks outplayed Dallas for the majority of the contest, and the Stars had some moments. They didn't generate a ton. John Gibson was great in between the pipes for Anaheim. He certainly made up for any of the Ducks' mistakes, had an expected goals against of 2.79. Dallas just didn't create a ton, not to nearly the amount that we've seen here over recent weeks. They didn't get to the net front enough and take the eyes away of Gibson, although they did have some good chances. Jason Robertson had 2 or 3 really good looks. That one in the second period off the turnover in the slot was kicked away by Gibson. Didn't look like Robertson had all of his traits going. I thought it was a really rough game for Dallas, and that was because of Anaheim, who really took it to the Stars physically from the outset. Anaheim had 20 hits in the first period they were credited with. That was the most in any period by the Ducks this season, and they were physically going after the Dallas Stars. Rope Hintz, the amount of times he was taken down and had to pick himself off the ice like a handful of times, almost a half dozen. Gudas got a good lick on him. A lot of different Stars players were dealing with the physicalness of Anaheim. Duchesne took a couple of bumps. Jamie Benn, right? Stankoven. I thought the Ducks came out and wanted to take it to Dallas physically, and it looked like the Stars were not ready for that type of style and didn't have the energy or juice to be able to push back for any large chunks of the game. After the Stars got scored on in the first, they had a little bit of life in the second period. After the power play that they were unsuccessful on, they've started to have some life. And then they got the kill early in that third period, which was huge. They had to kill a 5-on-3 late in the second, and the 5-on-4 carried over. They killed that. They survived. And then they had some juice. What a play by Blackwell to just go right to the slot. And what a play by Sam Steele is really who I should be shouting out here. He made the play by driving in low, He pulls up, he delays, looks for options as Jamie Benn had just come out of the box. Ben got tripped up. The Stars were actually going to go on a power play if they had not scored. But a great center lane drive by Blackwell, who was able to deflect it home for his 5th goal of the season. Dallas needed more of that, more net front presence, like get interior on the Ducks defense. But credit to Anaheim. I thought they defended really well. They took the middle of the ice away. The Stars struggled through neutral ice. The Ducks were high flying on the counterattack. I thought their transition game was phenomenal. And Dallas was on their heels when Anaheim had the puck for large parts of the game. One thing that really stood out was the active attack from the Ducks defense. They kept bringing it up on the broadcast, but Jackson Lacombe, right? Zellweger, Lundstrom, Hellison, like really active defense, moving the puck up the ice, pushing the play, creating offense for themselves and others. I thought the best players for Anaheim were better than the Stars in the contest, and it really showed in the game. The Stars got lost defensively. The first period, the first goal from Gauthier was a bit wonky, but again, another turnover by Dallas deep in their own zone, and then it just turned into a bit of a mess with Bichel and Dumba, and then a lot of reaching, a lot of sticks, not taking the puck, not taking the man, and Gauthier followed it up and buried it. And then the Zegras goal was, I don't know why Zegras was left all alone. I couldn't tell if that was Cece or Harley. Yeah, that was probably Harley's man. As I look back at it on the goal visualizer, you can find on NHL.com. It's actually really great. That's probably Harley. The Stars got way too comfortable with believing the puck was out of their own zone before it was last night. The amount of times they were flying up the rink and not being responsible, not taking the responsibility of making sure the puck is cleared before you start to move up ice. I thought that was really apparent yesterday. Like so many times, I thought Dallas was just flying the zone, but they weren't taking responsibility to make sure it was cleared, to make sure they had bodies back, no one's behind them, and that sort of was the issue with the Zegras goal. You believe the puck's going to get out, but you're getting lost, and you're just not having the awareness to realize, yeah, maybe there's somebody behind you, somebody just sort of being lackadaisical, getting back in case they do hold the zone, like Zegras was. And I thought Zegras had a pretty decent game as well for Anaheim, and he was able to chop it past Ottinger, who tried to go out to poke check it away. But just an unfortunate goal to give up, just, again, a few minutes after you finally tied the game. And the Stars just didn't have the energy or juice to really get one back and tie the game. Had some looks 6-on-5, but not a ton of dangerous opportunities. And that was sort of the story of the night. They ended up with 12 high danger chances in the contest. They have the Stars with 27 scoring chances to the 21 of Anaheim. But John Gibson was great, as he usually is against the Stars. That's usually the case. When Gibson is net, made his 500th career start, and the Ducks have taken 2 of the first 3 here in the season series. 14 giveaways for Dallas. A large chunk of those were in their own zone. Like Dumba had an awful night. Really tough night from Dumba. Just he had a rough night, to say the least. Harley played a lot, 26 and a half minutes. He looked tired. And we have to come to grips too that Thomas Harley's not ever played this much, and may not ever have to play this much in his near future than he has to right now because of Heiskanen. And it worries me if you're playing Harley, and I know he's been playing quite a bit this season, but if you're going to play him 20 to 28 minutes a night, that's going to be tough. The good thing is you do have 2 weeks off here upcoming. He's not part of the Four Nations, so he's gonna get a break. But post Four Nations, the final 2 months of the season, now that Miro's out month to month, we'll get to that in a bit. You can't run him into the ground. You cannot run him to the ground. He's obviously your number one. I thought he played pretty decently last night. He had some flubs, but he was trying to create for Dallas. He was trying. He was trying to do something offensively and get the Stars going. It's going to be tough. Lindell was by far the Stars' best D-man on the night. I thought Bischel looked really strong. He had 6 hits, which led the way for Dallas. I think he continues to look good and just kind of slowly gets better and better with each game. But, man, it's worrisome if Harley, because he looked tired. They took a couple shots of him on the bench, and maybe he was just frustrated more than anything, but it looked like he was just exhausted because he was playing a ton. And, of course, they're trailing, so they're trying to get some offense. He's clearly their number one threat offensively on the back end, so he's going to get a lot of those opportunities. And it was just a struggle bus to get any cohesiveness last night for Dallas. They were kind of changing up some lines. The combinations weren't clicking with Maverick Bourque out because of the puck he took to the face. So I think there was just some discombobulation in the lineup, and maybe we could have saw this outcome coming to the Ducks, who are playing well. They're playing well. They're not a bad team by any stretch. And they snapped the Stars' win streak with a 2-1 win last night. Let's jump into Lybushkin. We do have another update on Miro Heiskanen, but Lybushkin left last night. Another loss to the back end. When will it stop? Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. It takes 30 seconds to download it, by the way, on your smartphone. Go ahead and download the app. Plus, knowing that you can place just a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. So Ilya Lyubushkin left in the latter stages of the second period of last night's game against the Ducks. And on the broadcast, they never showed a potential cause to the injury. They just showed him walking off the bench. I was like, okay, thanks for that. I thought that was so unnecessary. They could have just said he left the bench. Instead, they showed him just like trying to get through the sea of bodies on the Stars bench. And like, here's a possible reason for the injury. Him walking off the bench. Anyways, no, chalk up to another win for ESPN Plus. This stinks for a number of reasons, but it's a possible another right-handed defenseman that you lose. He did not return to the game. He played just over 10 minutes last night. And I just don't know how many more of these injuries the Stars can take on the back. And they're winning games, and they're still finding ways to be successful. But now Miro Heiskanen is month to month. It looks like it's going to be 8 to 12 weeks. He had surgery in New York, and he's considered month to month. He had surgery yesterday on Tuesday. It went well, and he's considered month to month. He's been placed on the LTIR. I already have my reservations about the Stars without Miro Heiskanen, especially come playoff time. And I hope he comes back to playoff time. But that is not a guarantee. I don't see Dallas getting through 2 rounds without Miro. 1, sure. 2 seems like an uphill climb. A really, really uphill climb with what Dallas is trotting out there on the back end. And the Stars do not have, and this isn't a Edmonton situation where last year Edmonton is so potent offensively, they can make up for any of the mistakes. They can make up for the CC and Nurse pairing. They had McDavid and Draisaitl, and they had a power play that just can beat the brakes off anybody. Stars are not that team. They do not have a once-in-a-generation talent and other multiple superstars that can carry you individually through a playoff series like Edmonton has. If Lybushkin's going to be out for, and again, he may not be out for the rest of the season, but it's just another wrench you have to throw into this mess of a decor the Stars have. And Harley and Lindell are going to play a ton. Good thing is Bischel is really coming into his own, but it's just a hodgepodge of veterans and some young guys are just throwing together and trying to learn on the fly, and they're doing an excellent job of it. It's a lot harder than I probably make it out to be, what the Stars have been doing with the injuries they have had to overcome, and they're just throwing different guys and rookies into the lineup each and every night. That's really tough to do, and they performed admirably. And yes, Jim Nill went out to grab Granlund and CC just this past week, but that was a Band-Aid to patch some things up for what you hope in the near future is a bit of a splash trade, right? But Jim Nill is not going to give up Wyatt Johnson. He's not going to give up Bischel. He's not going to give up Bork. He's not going to give up maybe even a few of his assets down in Texas, right? Or at least some of the highly touted ones. I don't believe he's willing to just give those up for maybe a guy you can maybe slot into the top 4, right? That can give you some minutes you feel comfortable about, but I think it's going to have to be almost somebody perfect. It's going to have to be the exact player for Jim Nill to do something like that. He already gave up his first round pick. Next year, they are not going to just sell their soul here just to try to win now. And that is really, really hard to hear, but it has to be accepted amongst the Stars community as well. And we can kind of tie this into the next segment. You're not going to trade Wyatt Johnston or Stankoven or Bork or Bischel so you can add a number 2. You can add a number 2 because you're not going to get a Miro. Let's just say you're going to get maybe Harley or worse. Let's set the bench line there just to get one of those type of players. Yeah, he can have an impact. Is he going to win you a series? Probably not. Can he help you? Of course. But you're not trading your next 10 years off to try to win now. You're just not. You're just not. And it sucks because I've been of the belief all season long, Stars have to make a big move. They're going to have to make a Chris Tanev type acquire to really get get this roster where it needs to be, but things change as well. Context matters. It all changes with what Dallas has been going through. And let's all say, let's be perfectly fair here. If Dallas is all healthy come playoff times, so you got Miro, you got Marchment, you got Sagan back, right? I think you feel pretty good about where the Stars roster is, even with CC. Because, I mean, imagine you're back in, you got Miro, you got Harley, you got Lybushkin, you got Lindell. It's not a terrible top four. And you got Bichel, Dumba, Bichel and CC as your third pair. It's not atrocious. It's better than probably what you had coming into the season. I would say, like, it's not terrible. And we all know what the Stars offense can be. So there's stuff to like there with the roster. When it's fully healthy, of course, but that's a big if right now. I hope Lybushkin comes back, of course. We could just be worried. So it may not be a big issue. It really might not. If I recall, I think in that New York game in Madison Square Garden, Lybushkin took a hit and he left in the contest. I could be wrong on that. It could be a different game. So maybe it's just precautionary. But he did not return to the game. Just never a good sign, of course. And it's another body blow. It's just every time they seem to weather the storm, another thing happens. So a tough blow and a tough loss to Anaheim last night. So wanted to get into that and sort of talk about the implications of it all and sort of where I think Jim Nill sees the Stars and why he's not going to just sell off the next 10 years for a number two, whether that's a forward, whether that's a defenseman, right? Sort of where I see it. Okay, I wanted to do a Luka trade comparison since he's been all the hoopla, so I might as well get some views from it, possibly. Kidding, because we all know it was the hottest topic in DFW, and we'll get into that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars brought to you by Gametime. Looking for tickets to your next big event, whether it's a concert, comedy show, or sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. But with Gametime Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Gametime Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. The great part about Gametime is it shows you the view from your seats before you buy. Over the summer, I was going to Fenway Park, and it can get a bit funky at Fenway. As many of you may know, there's some different and funky little spots. I wanted to make sure I got the perfect view of Fenway Park, the most beautiful ballpark in the entire world. And boom, I went to Gametime. Within 10 minutes, I said, oh, there we go. Center field. It's going to be a beautiful night game at Fenway. And I got my tickets within 20 minutes for me, a couple of my friends, my girlfriend, and boom, we had a great time. And Gametime has a Gametime's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKED, own NHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. So I wanted to kick this idea around because of the Luka trade over the weekend, which obviously overshadowed what the Stars did on the weekend. And I was mulling it over and trying to come up with the sort of comparison for the Stars, what player they could have traded that would have caused this almost hatred for the organization to some extent, or a protest in front of the AAC. I don't know if you get this type of visceral reaction for some of the current Stars players, not to the level of Luka, at least. I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong. Robertson, I could see. Rope. Miro, of course. Miro seems to be sort of the same, I would say, realm of what Luka is in his sport, although Luka's even better, to be fair. Like, Luka's top 5 basketball player in the world, and Miro is somewhere maybe within the top 20, top 15, which it is fair, but I don't know if it would cause this visceral reaction, which is maybe something that could be argued, of course. But the name I came back to would have been Mike Modano. It is the name I fall on. Once in a generation type talents. Of course, Modano's taken first overall in 1988. Luka. Of course, there was the trade on the NBA draft night with Atlanta, I believe, with Trae Young. I think it was within the top 6. I could be wrong. I don't follow basketball all that much, as you would imagine. But like, once in a generation type of players, they get here when they're young. Luka came to Dallas when he was just a teenager. Mike got over to Dallas when he was 23. So didn't spend his teenage years here, but still young. The frontal lobe was still developing. I think it still develops till you're like 26. But imagine trading your once in a generational type of talent for number 2. I just don't understand it. And look, I know there's a lot of talk about Luka and his conditioning, and he sort of want to do it his way or the highway. Welcome to the NBA. LeBron does it his way. And I know LeBron is, again, arguably the best basketball player in the world, but the Luka Doncic's and Mike Modano's just don't just fall from the sky. Those don't just get handed to you all the time. And I can only imagine if the Stars thought, well, Mike doesn't buy in enough in the defensive zone, right? It was sort of what Modano needed to get better at, right? He needed to become a more two-way player. And Ken Hitchcock came to Dallas and sort of kept hammering that in to Mo. Like, you got to be better. You're going to have to play. You're going to have to play all 200 feet of the sheet. And to not let him mature and continue to improve his game and get to a point where he grows up some, and then you get to reap the benefits of his prime, it would be mind-boggling. I think that's almost a perfect representation or perfect comparison. If at 25, you got rid of Mike Modano, who had 81 points in 78 games, and he wasn't even in his prime yet, so to speak. He hadn't even entered his prime, or at least in today's age, where your athletic prime's like 26 to 32-ish. Oh, it is truly mind-boggling and shocking. It really is. And I get there's some pushback about the conditioning and maybe the work ethic. And I know he had the big contract coming up. But you keep those players around, man. You have to keep those players around. I find it GM malpractice from the Mavs is what I would say. And look, I don't have any credibility to speak on this, but it just feels like malpractice of what the Mavs did over the weekend. But I thought that was an interesting comparison. Maybe there's another player we could bring up, but I feel like Mike Modano's just so similar. We're young, got him in the draft. He grew up, had to make some improvements, had to evolve his game if he wanted to get to a point where he could not only be successful, but the team, the Stars could, to win a Stanley Cup. And they went through that whole entire process, and we got to see it all come to fruition. And the Mavs almost did it last year. Right? I mean, went to the finals. They've gotten through some of the heartbreaks. They continued to improve, and seemed like year after year they got a little bit better, and they were starting to build a decent team around him. They made some moves, and then you just get rid of them for a bag of chips, really. And that's harsh. AD's a great player. Okay. I don't watch a lot of basketball, but AD's a great player. Still, a bit interesting, but I imagine Madonna would get that type of reaction. You're gonna have some protests. But it's no surprise that Madonna and Dirk have statues, and it felt like Luka was probably on that way if he stayed for another decade. And unfortunately, he's not. Shocking stuff. Anyways, just wanted to throw that out there as a bit of a theory of some kind to end today's episode. Well, that'll do it for a Wednesday edition of Locked On Stars. Appreciate all of you wonderful everydayers out there. Tomorrow, I will have an episode out with Sam Nessler of DLLS Stars. He's going to join the show Thursday afternoon, so it will be out a bit later on Thursday. So be on the lookout for that as well. Until then, have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow. So long, Stars fans.